The Thunderer, Zeus, seated on his Olympus, keenly watched over mortals. His gaze, piercing through the clouds, easily detected lies and hypocrisy. As the guardian of oaths and agreements, he did not tolerate treachery and harshly punished violators. One day, news reached his ears about a certain Phaedon, a man who freely made oaths but just as easily broke them. Phaedon, a merchant by trade, deceived his customers, swearing by the gods the quality of his goods while secretly substituting them with inferior products. He pledged loyalty to his comrades, yet behind their backs wove intrigues and pursued his own gain. Rumors of his dishonor quickly spread throughout Hellas, reaching even Zeus himself. The wrath of the Thunderer was terrible. He decided to teach Phaedon a lesson so that others would be warned. Zeus unleashed a hailstorm upon Phaedon's house, destroying his property. A deadly plague struck his livestock, and Phaedon himself, afflicted by illness, was abandoned by all his friends whom he had so often betrayed. In despair, Phaedon prayed to Zeus for mercy. He swore to mend his ways, to live honestly and justly. Hearing his pleas, Zeus took pity on the sufferer. He ceased his punishments, but left Phaedon a reminder of his past sins, an incurable scar from a lightning strike on his arm, so that he would always remember the price of oath-breaking. Having learned his lesson, Phaedon began to live righteously, and his name entered legend as an example that even the gods can grant forgiveness to sincere repentance. Since then, Phaedon became known not only for his scar, but also for his honesty. He compensated those he had previously deceived, returning their money twofold and even threefold to atone for his guilt. To his former comrades, whom he had betrayed, he offered help and support, striving to earn their forgiveness and trust. Now his word was stronger than stone, and his reputation impeccable. Phaedon reevaluated his entire life. Wealth was no longer his goal. He understood that true wealth lies in honesty and a good name. He devoted himself to helping those in need, conducting business fairly, and protecting the weak. His home became a refuge for those seeking justice and support. The scar on his arm, once a symbol of his sins, had now become a sign of his transformation. It reminded him and everyone around of the importance of keeping oaths, and that even the gravest sins can be forgiven through sincere repentance and good deeds. Phaedon often raised his scarred arm, telling his story to young people, warning them against lies and treachery. Phaedon's name, once tarnished, became a symbol of redemption and devotion. His story was passed down from generation to generation, reminding all of the power of divine justice and mercy, and the importance of honesty and fairness in every person's life. The memory of the Thunderer Zeus and the repentant Phaedon served as a lesson for all the inhabitants of Hellas. Phaedon lived a long and righteous life, leaving behind a legacy of goodness and justice. His story became part of the myths and legends of ancient Greece, reminding that even the gods value honesty and sincere repentance, and that any person, regardless of their past mistakes, can atone for their guilt and earn forgiveness. After Phaedon's death, the townspeople erected a temple in his honor, called the Temple of Honor. In this temple, in a prominent place, there was a stone slab carved with the image of a hand bearing the scar wrapped in a laurel wreath. Pilgrims from all over Hellas came to this temple to touch the slab and ask Phaedon for guidance in difficult life situations when they had to choose between profit and honor. Young merchants and traders were told the story of Phaedon before beginning their professional paths. They were reminded that wealth gained by dishonest means brings no happiness, but only poisons the soul and leads to ruin. True prosperity comes only to those who keep their word and act justly toward their partners and competitors.
During festivals dedicated to Zeus, theatrical performances were held in the cities of Hellas, recounting the story of Phaedon. Actors portrayed his fall and subsequent rebirth, showing that even the most notorious villain can change and become a model of virtue. These performances served as a reminder that the gods always give a chance for redemption, and every person can choose their path, the path of darkness or the path of light. Phaedon's name became proverbial. When speaking of a person distinguished by impeccable honesty and willingness to make sacrifices for justice, people would say he is as steadfast as Phaedon. This image inspired many to perform good deeds and strengthened the belief that the world can be changed for the better if everyone starts with themselves. The legend of Phaedon has survived to this day, enduring through the centuries and becoming a symbol of hope for those who seek forgiveness and strive for a righteous life. It reminds us that even in the darkest times, there is always room for light and that sincere repentance can work miracles. As time passed, stories of miracles occurring at the Temple of Honor multiplied. It was said that touching the stone slab not only granted wisdom, but also healed emotional wounds and helped free one from the torment of conscience. Many left with enlightened faces, full of determination to change their lives for the better. Over the years, a small town grew around the Temple of Honor, inhabited by craftsmen, merchants, and farmers whose lives were imbued with the principles of honesty and justice. The town was famous for its skilled artisans who created beautiful works and for its fair trading practices. It became an example for other city-states, demonstrating how a society founded on virtue could achieve prosperity and harmony. Philosophers and scholars often visited this town, studying the influence of Phaedon's legend on the lives of its inhabitants. They noted that the stories of his deeds not only inspired noble actions, but also shaped a social structure where honesty, responsibility, and mutual support were valued. And even as times changed and Hellas gave way to new empires, Phaedon's name was not forgotten. His story continued to be passed down from generation to generation, reminding people of eternal values that remain relevant at all times. The legend of Phaedon became part of the cultural code, a symbol that even one person who rejects darkness and chooses the light can change the world for the better. However, as often happens, the shadow of envy and greed did not bypass this oasis of virtue. Rumors of the city's wealth, its thriving workshops, and honest merchants reached the ears of greedy rulers from neighboring lands. They began to devise cunning plans, dreaming of capturing the city and plundering its treasures. The city was repeatedly subjected to raids by bandits and attempts of invasion, but the inhabitants, raised on the principles of honor and justice, always repelled the enemies. They fought not only for their land and property, but for their ideals, for the right to live in a society where virtue and justice are valued. The legend of Phaedon gave them strength and confidence in victory. Years passed, and the Temple of Honor continued to stand as an unshakable symbol of faith in goodness and justice. The legend of Phaedon turned into a powerful cultural phenomenon, influencing the minds and hearts of people far beyond the city's borders. His name became proverbial, a symbol of honor, courage, and self-sacrifice. The descendants of those who once settled around the Temple of Honor faithfully preserved the memory of Phaedon and his feat. They passed down from generation to generation the stories of his life, his struggle against darkness, and his triumph over evil. And even in the darkest times, when the world seemed mired in vice and injustice, they believed that Phaedon's light continued to shine, pointing the way to truth and virtue.